On this video, I am doing a reading of Job chapter 5, 1 to 7 in the Hebrew Scriptures, along with an inductive grammatical analysis and commentary as we look at the flow of thought of Job. We have seen thus far that after the prologue and after Job's own can I say, monologue in chapter 4, we then had the speech of Eliphaz. I'm sorry, the monologue in chapter 3. We then had the speech of Eliphaz, and it's still continuing, in which he has the vision of having seen that no one can be just before God, and also the frailty of mankind. So, having described his awesome vision and the frailty of man, Eliphaz reminds Job that it is futile to try to vindicate himself before God, and that human trouble is the natural lot of man. With that introduction of these verses, I want to now go to the Hebrew, look at it grammatically, and then also seek to make a running commentary. So it reads, Quran now, Hayesh onecha ve'el mi mikodashim tifneh. Notice it says, call now. Is there any who will answer you? And unto whom from the holy ones will you turn? Kara is your cow imperative masculine singular from kara. So call now. Is there one who answers you? We could say, is there anyone who answers you? Here we have ana to answer the verb. We have a cow participle, masculine singular, with the pronominal suffix second masculine singular in the cha. Then, unto whom from the holy ones will you turn? Tifna is from pana, to turn. It's a cow imperfect, second masculine singular from pana. And the holy ones here, I believe, are referring to angelic beings. Eliphaz turns to Job to challenge his complaint. Can Job, the thought seems to be, think that God will answer his complaints? To think so is wrong. Neither can he turn to the angels, literally the holy ones. He cannot turn to them either, for they cannot answer for God. And then he moves on in the next verse. The text moves on. Ki la'avil yaharag ka'ash u foteh tamit kin'ah. For anger slays the simple or the foolish man. And I'm going to render this rage. It means envy, but I think here it has the idea of rage. The one rage will kill the one who is open, or the simple one. So Eliphaz continues, for anger kills the foolish men. Yaharag is the cow imperfect, third masculine singular from harag. And then the one who is open, foteh is from patach, to open. And it's looking at one who is open and simple, in the sense open for bad influences, good or bad, but here in this context, bad. So it's that participle, Cal participle masculine singular. So the one who is open, or the we could say the simple one, envy, and here I think it means anger, like I said, or rage, will slay. Tamid is from mot. It's a cow imperfect, excuse me, it's a hifil imperfect, uh, third feminine singular from mot, to slay. So envy will slay, envy that has the idea of anger connected with it, will slay the open one or the simple person. Then the text continues, Ani ra'iti avil mashrish ve'ekov navehu pitom. I have seen the foolish taking root, and I cursed his habitation immediately. Ani here is making it very, very personal. I have seen. Ra'iti is the cow perfect first common singular from ra'ah, a lamed hey verb. I have seen the foolish causing to take root. The stem here is sharash, to take root. It's a hifil participle masculine singular from sharash. And I cursed. Ekov is from nakav. I'm understanding it as a pay noon verb, where the noon has assimilated into the into the kaf here. So I cursed his habitation suddenly. In other words, the kov, I should say, I cursed his habitation, his dwelling place. I suddenly cursed. To bring these these two verses together, anger against God slays the foolish man who tries to exercise it, Eliphaz is saying. Job's rash complaints against God will only result in death. And then in verse 3, Eliphaz sees the foolish, or those who are open but are foolish, who turn from God, as being suddenly cut off. They take root and look prosperous for a while, but in an instant God judges them and they perish. So Eliphaz curses their dwelling, so that it is not to really be envied. In other words, he doesn't envy it, he curses their dwelling. And so then the text continues in verse 4. Yirhaku vanav meyesha vayit dakau basha'ar v'ein matzil. And his children are far from safety, and they are crushed at the gate, and there is none who delivers. Yirhaku is from rachak. It's the cow imperfect, third masculine plural from rachak, to be far. So his children are far from safety, and they are crushed at the gate. So we have this kind of parallelism all the way through the poetry here, a synonymous kind of parallelism where the ideas are repeated. And notice yedakau is from daka, to crush. Here we have a hitpael, imperfect, third masculine plural from daka, to crush. So they are crushed at the gate, and there is none who delivers. Matsil is from natsal, it's a pay-noon verb. And here we have a hifil participle, masculine singular from natsal. So there is none who delivers. So by the way, natsil became matsil, where the noon of the pay-noon verb, by progressive assimilation, has assimilated into the sati. The thought here in verse 4 is that his children are far from safety, and they are crushed in the gate with no one to deliver them. The result is that of the father's death, where the children of the man are left without anyone to defend them against unjust judgment. And the gate here refers to City Hall or the city courtroom, for it was at the gate of an Oriental city that public proceedings and business was carried out. We see this, for example, in Psalm 127, verse 5, in Genesis 23:10, in Deuteronomy 21:19, and in Ruth 4, verse 11. So without the intervention and defense of a father, children then are often unjustly treated at the gate and deprived of their rights, having no one to defend them. So that is the result, Eliphaz is saying, of those who are foolish before God and who have anger against him. And then we move on to verse 5. It says, Asher ketziro ra'ev yochel, ve'el mitzinim yekachehu, ve'sha'af samim chelam, whose harvest and the hungry eat. And unto, we could render this, and he takes it from the thorns, that is the hungry, takes it from the thorns, and a snare pants for their substance. Here we have Yochel is a cow imperfect, third masculine singular from achal, and unto from the thorns, sinim, he takes it, that is the hungry one. Yekachehu is from lakach, to take. The lamed has dropped out, and here we have a cow imperfect, third masculine singular, with who, the pronominal suffix. So from the thorns, he takes it, and the we could say a snare pants, or a trap pants for their substance. Sha'af is the cow perfect, third masculine singular, meaning to pant. It's sort of like the sun rises and the sun sets, and it pants to go from where it came. We see the same word in my recollection of Kohelet, of Ecclesiastes chapter 1. So the thought here in verse 5 seems to be this: the foolish or wicked man does not partake of his own harvest, but others, literally the hungry one, plunder and eat up his harvest. He is stripped so much that the grains which grow up among thorns are taken by others, so that there is not a kernel left. It is as though a snare or trap is set and panting for the substance of this man. So the last phrase of verse 5 in the Hebrew reads, and the snare pants, as we've said, for their substance. And then moving on to verse 6, Ki lo yetse me afar aven ume adama lo yitzmach amal. For affliction does not come from the, or come forth from the dust, nor from the ground does trouble spring forth. He's really going to simply say the trouble comes from man's own heart and rebellion against God. Notice for affliction does not, Yetse is from Yatsa. It historically was a Pei Vav root, where the Vav has elided, and we have compensatory lengthening under the Yod here, from a Hirik to a Tsere. Yivtse became Yetse. So it's the cow imperfect, third masculine singular from a historical Vatsa to come forth, and nor from the ground does trouble spring out. Yitzmach from Samach, a cow imperfect third masculine singular. The thought here seems to be trouble for man, reasons Eliphaz, does not come from the ground or the dust, that is, from a source external to man, but man really begets his own trouble by his sin. And we're going to see that develop clearly in the next verse. So reading verse 7, it reads, Ki adam la amal yulad uvene reshef yagbihu uf. For man, for trouble is born, or has been born. And as sons of, actually we could render this, sons of flame, like sparks, they become great to fly. As sparks, some want to translate this, fly upward, or they become, caused to become great to fly. For man, for trouble, Yulad is born. This is from Yalad, and I'm understanding this as a Pual has been born, or is born, from Yulad, a Pual imperfect, third masculine singular from Yalad, is born as sons, and the Vav here probably we should render as, illustrating how man is born into trouble, as the sons of flame, B'nei Reshef, Yagbihu. Yagbihu is from Gavah, and the root here, Gavah, means to be great. And I think the thought here, great in the sense of flying, being able to fly, to make high, we could translate it here. It's a hifil, as we said, imperfect, third masculine plural from gava. So as flames make high to fly. And oof is the cow infinitive construct from the verb of to fly. So man is born, has been born for trouble. as sparks, we could say, are made strong to fly, and hence we could render it as sparks fly upward, would be a looser translation. So the idea again, trouble for man, Eliphaz is saying, does not come, as we saw in verse 6, from the ground or dust. That is, from a source, as we've said, external to man. But man begets trouble by his own sin. It is as natural for man to do this as it is for sparks of a flame to fly upward. And again, there's an interesting theology here. On one level, of course, what Eliphaz is saying, looking at the overall argument of Job, is that he's using this in a wrong way toward Job, because Job has not sinned, and he's trying to prove that he's guilty and has suffered because of his sin. So it's a wrong use of, we could say, correct theology or philosophy, which is ironic as we look at the book of Job. This is one of the brilliance, can I say, the brilliant things of this book. He speaks truth even when the friends are making a mistake relative to Job. For example, as we look at the New Testament, and one of my goals is to make application to New Testament thought as well in theology. Paul says in Romans, for example, for all have sinned and are constantly falling short of the glory of God. And so when I read a text like this, as a teacher of both Hebrew and Greek New Testament, it seems to me that what Eliphaz is saying is true in, let's say, a theological sense of humanity, but wrong in applying it to Job in this particular case. And so it is true that man tends to go away from God all the time, going back to the fall. And that's what Paul is saying. And as a Christian minister, I would apply this in the New Testament to the answer being the justification that one has through the work of Christ. And by his atoning death upon the cross, sins have been removed. And man, who is incapable of doing, Paul says, that which is pleasing to God, has the answer in the forgiveness that the Lord gives through the divine crucifixion and resurrection of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who provides a basis of divine pardon and acquittal for humanity and for those who believe and accept that.